Howdy, and welcome to our live stream. We are so glad you could join us today as we take a look at science on the ocean. I'm Dr. Darren Henrichs, an instructional assistant professor in the Department of Oceanography here at Texas A&M University. On behalf of our department, I am excited to bring you a live stream from the middle of the Gulf, where Dr. Chrissy Wiederwohl and Dr. Sarah Hu are leading a research cruise with some of our incredible oceanography graduate students. Over the next hour, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look at some of the hands-on science they are doing out there, meet some of our amazing students, and even hear a few questions from university leadership. Before we begin, I did want to touch on some of the logistics of this live stream. We are going to be hearing from scientists sailing on a research vessel out in the ocean, hundreds of miles from land. If for some reason we lose our video connection, we will have to try to get it back quickly, but if we are unable to restore that connection, we will have to postpone the live stream to a later date. So let's keep our fingers crossed for fair weather. Now, let's kick this off by checking in with cruise leader Dr. Chrissy Wiederwohl to hear where they are and what this cruise is all about. Welcome, Drs. Wiederwohl and Hu.
Hey, Darren. Darren.
Hello. So I want to know, where are y'all right now? And I'm sure the viewers want to know, what are y'all doing out there?
Yeah, so right now we are a little bit south and east of the Mississippi River Delta. We are out here collecting all kinds of samples. That's why we were delayed. We were waiting for some of our equipment to get on deck safely before we did a Zoom. So we are out here collecting all kinds of samples. We're essentially looking at different gradients in the water column, spatially and vertically. So we have some transects that are coming out from the Mississippi River outflow that are going into the offshore environment, what we call the blue water part. So we're looking spatially at gradients in the water column that way, and then also vertically. So we're collecting samples all the way from the surface down to 3,000 meters deep.
Wow, that sounds incredible and also very important.
Yeah, so Sarah, do you want to talk about some of the science you guys are doing out here?
Yeah, sure. So some of the science goals that we have out here are to, like Chrissy said, understand the vertical and horizontal spatial gradients that of our entire Gulf ecosystem here. I mean, we have a fantastic set of samples that are near the coast, and then we have much further offshore. So we have a way to compare and contrast the impact of that coastal influence from our coastal populations and cities, and then more offshore in the Gulf. And one of our research goals is to understand the mechanisms that are controlling the foundation of microbial food webs and the food web that really does power and fuel the rest of life in the Gulf region.
Wow. You, the way you talk about things, you both seem to really enjoy being out there on the water. So how did you know this is what you wanted to do? This kind of work is what you wanted to do. How did you realize that?
You want me to go first? Sure. Okay. I didn't. So I grew up in the Midwest in a really small farming community. I'm pretty sure I was driving a tractor before I drove anything else. Oh yes, there I am on a tractor, on my grandfather's tractor. Grew up fishing. I looked terrified of that fish, but believe you, I enjoyed it. And I didn't really know that this was a career that you could do. When I was in high school, I took a marine science type class from one of my high school teachers. And that really changed my view of actually being able to study the ocean. You know, my parents cobbled together money every year for us to go on a beach vacation in South Carolina. And I just fell in love with the ocean. And I didn't realize that this is what you could do until I was a freshman in college and discovered that you could actually study the ocean and be an oceanographer. And so my graduate career took me to Antarctica. So I'm a physical oceanographer by training, which means I study the physics of the ocean. And most of my research experience is in the Southern Ocean. And so I fell in love with that at sea environment, being able to collect data in such a pristine location and be able to study things that we just don't know the answers to yet, right? This is kind of one of the last unknowns that we have on our planet, and it's really exciting and a privilege to be able to do that kind of work. I was really excited to transition some of my work to the Gulf, mainly because it's not as cold and it's not as far away. And so it's really great to be out here with our graduate students and kind of training them and showing them the things that I learned along the way, you know, and being able to see that passion in them and have them discover that passion of collecting data in real time.
Cool. Sarah, what about you?
So I did grow up on the coast. I grew up in Southern California, and so I had spent a lot of time near the ocean and did always love the ocean. And I definitely grew up loving science and I guess computers also. But it wasn't really until college when I learned more about the different types of careers that one could have in marine biology, fisheries, and oceanography. So I actually started out looking at really big things. And what I mean by that are things like fish and shellfish in the ocean, and trying to understand how that serves populations, because I was thinking about oceans and human health, that linkage there. But then later on in college, I discovered marine microbes and the role that single-celled microorganisms that live in the ocean that really kind of fuel the bottom of the food web for that shellfish and that fishing industry. And so I kind of started to shift towards looking at those things. And more recently, I've also looked in a lot of the deep sea environments, thinking about how the deep sea is connected to the upper water column or the surface. And now I'm also studying a lot in the Gulf region. And again, it's a lot closer. It's easier to get to. We have these beautiful transects we can run, and we get to train students at the same time. It's really fun to train students and bring them out here. You really can't replace being able to show them how to make all the tiny measurements that they read about and study with and they use in their models or they process on their computers. You can't replace how to actually take that sample in person.
Wow. Those are some amazing stories. And you two have been all over the world's oceans studying marine life and physics of the ocean. I must say, I'm a little jealous to be here in the office right now while you two are at sea having fun. But I did want to thank you both for sharing your stories with us. We will come back to you later on in this live stream. So coming up next, we are going to hear from two of our graduate students in the Department of Oceanography about the projects they are working on and what led them to study oceanography. So if they are ready, let's go ahead and check in with our first graduate student on the cruise. There we are, Alexis Adams. So Alexis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Great. Would you mind telling us a bit about what you are doing out there? We heard from Drs. Wiederwohl and Hu about the overall goal of the cruise, but could you tell us a little bit about what you specifically are working out there and some of the roles that you fill while you're at sea?
Yes, absolutely. So I am a graduate student here at Texas A&M, and I work with Dr. Sarah Hu. So my main job here is that I sample from the CTD Niskin Rosette to collect water profile samples. As we were talking about, we get that spatial gradient, so we get the vertical profile as well as a horizontal profile. And so what I do with those samples is that some of that water is automatically preserved so that I can get, the abundance and biomass of the microbial communities, as well as I filter that water, and from there I can do molecular work. And the goal of this research is to understand how the microbial communities are changing near the Mississippi coast out towards more offshore regions.
Okay. So you're looking at microbial communities and the role of those individual microbes in those communities, and then how those change over space and time.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as a biologist myself, I love that. I'm not going to lie. So you could study microbial life in a lot of different environments. How did you decide that oceanography was where you wanted to work?
Yeah, so, growing up, I wanted to be like most kids, a marine biologist. And every Thanksgiving, my parents and my family, we took a trip to the Texas Gulf, and I would bring a microscope and a little science kit. And I just really loved the ocean and I loved doing science out there. And so I pursued a bachelor's of science in biology at the University of Texas in Dallas, where I worked at a freshwater mussel research lab while I applied to graduate programs. What attracted me to the oceanography field is the fact that it's so inherently interdisciplinary. So I really loved the idea of being able to analyze a question from all disciplines, looking at physical, biological, and chemical processes to answer these questions. But truthfully, I never realized how oceanography would also warrant all of these amazing opportunities. I got to go in the human occupied vehicle Alvin, and I've also worked with Jason. As you can see, me and my lab group worked with Jason. And so oceanography is just, it's a really great field to be able to get out here and do field work.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Alexis, for sharing your story. We are now going to hear from our second graduate student, Dorothy Grimmer, about her work and how she decided that working on the ocean was what she wanted to do. So welcome, Dorothy.
Yeah, so on this cruise, I'm a graduate student and I work with Dr. Daniel Thornton. And so between managing CTT deployments and taking nutrient samples, I'm also taking some of my own samples. So my work focuses on understanding how ocean life, particularly phytoplankton, influences cloud formation. So phytoplankton are the base of the food web. They are single-celled microscopic plants that flow throughout the ocean, and are pretty ubiquitous throughout the ocean. And so they produce half of Earth's oxygen and form the base of the food web. But also, I study how their cellular material can be transferred through the air through sea spray. So, if you've been to the beach and you felt that mist from the waves, that's that sea spray. And then these particles can be lofted up into the atmosphere and then behave to form liquid water clouds or ice clouds. And while ice clouds are primarily at higher altitudes, most clouds contain at least some ice. And so understanding where this ice comes from is really important because these ice containing clouds are longer lasting and also brighter, so they reflect more solar radiation. And given the rapidly warming temperatures, it's really important to understand the balance between incoming radiation and outgoing radiation. And so on this cruise, I have my air sampler and I am taking particle samples to analyze the amount of protein in them because proteins are really good at making these ice clouds. And so I'm going to analyze the amount of protein to kind of capture the extent to which ocean life influences these ice cloud processes.
Wow. I must admit that's a little mind-boggling to think that microscopic plankton in the ocean can be involved in cloud formation. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. I think that really goes to show how tightly linked our oceans and atmosphere are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you, again, similar to Alexis, right? You could study the atmosphere in a lot of different environments. How did you decide that working with the ocean and atmosphere was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I definitely started with an interest in the ocean. When I was little, I was absolutely fascinated by the ocean and convinced that I was going to work at SeaWorld. But this became a dream to become a marine biologist. And so when I was 9, I was actually stung by a Portuguese man of war. And contrary to what people thought, I became even more interested in what the ocean held and all the amazing, crazy creatures that live inside. And so I took every opportunity to learn more about the ocean, which led me to the NASA Virginia Earth System Science Scholars Research Program. And this picture here is a research program program I did in high school. And that's when I learned about phytoplankton and how I can use satellites to study the ocean. And so I continued with this into the NASA Student Airborne Research Program that I did during my undergraduate. And I learned about how I can study how phytoplankton are actually important to the atmosphere and capture that Earth system science aspect that I'm so passionate about. And then I basically got to fly on these planes. And so I wanted to continue this research into my PhD. So that is what brought me to Texas A&M.
Wow. Okay. So you two took different paths, along with Doctors Wiederwohl and Hu taking very different paths to get to their careers on the ocean. I wanted to thank you both for sharing your stories. Alexis and Dorothy, hang with us for a moment. We are about to be joined by a special guest. So I am excited to welcome the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences here at Texas A&M University, Dr. Mark Zoran, live from College Station. Dean Zoran, thank you for being here with us today.
Howdy, Darren. My pleasure to be here. This is so cool. Coming from the fourth floor of the academic building on campus, all the way, via your building where you are, Darren, and all the way out to the middle of the Gulf. Howdy, Alexis and Dorothy. Good to meet you.
Howdy.
So Dean Zoran, I understand you have some questions for our students.
I do. Let me just jump in to say that, I started out, I grew up like Chrissy did in the middle of the Midwest, and, hoping to be a marine biologist. That was kind of my goal as a child. And I started out in undergraduate school and a master's, going that route. And over that time, I became interested in the brain and neuroscience. And now I talk to you today as a neuroscientist, not as an oceanographer. But our paths take us in different directions. So I've worked a lot in laboratories, neuroscience laboratories, most of my career. I've never had the advantage of working on a cruise or on a laboratory at sea. So I guess my question for both of you is, why is participating in this cruise so meaningful to each of you, either personally or professionally?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, this gives me an amazing training opportunity to learn how to be a good seagoing oceanographer. So Chrissy and Sarah are working so hard to help all of us become really great oceanographers and give us really good experience for future research expeditions. And for me personally, like being able to collect data out at sea is invaluable as preliminary data for grant proposals.
Yeah, much like Dorothy said, this is a really good opportunity to get out here and learn how to use a lot of the equipment and how to sample. And also being here in person to collect samples really helps with downstream analysis in that, the environment is not predictable. And so being able to be here in person to make judgment calls about how and when we take these samples will also help us too.
Great. So the research that both of you do, which was really cool, I was listening in on what you guys are doing out there. So how does that actual research science that both of you are conducting, how does that help us better understand the Gulf specifically?
So for me, I am doing these protein analyses across the inshore to offshore gradient. So we know that different phytoplankton communities and different ocean/sea conditions create different amounts of different types of particles that behave differently, like whether or not they're forming these liquid water clouds or ice clouds. So understanding how the Gulf contributes along this inshore to offshore gradient is really important. And then we can put that into the bigger picture of the Earth's contribution to atmospheric processes.
In terms of the work that I am doing, the microbial population is incredibly important, not only because, they form the base of the food chain, but also because they do really critical jobs like recycle nutrients and export carbon to the deep. And so understanding how these communities change from coastal regions to offshore will better understand, the diversity of the community present as well as what they're doing.
Great. That's wonderful. Let me ask you one more question. Uh, I I study the part of the brain that interacts with day-night cycles. So I studied circadian rhythms, biological clocks, and it's very interesting to me how the brain differs between day and night. I noticed in the clip that we saw that you were collecting a sample at night. So let me ask you this question. For both of your works, when you sample the Gulf during the day versus during the night, do you find any differences between those samples? Especially as a biologist, I'm interested in, the algae or the phytoplankton that you find. Do you find more, for example, luminescent algae at night in your samples than during the day? Go ahead.
So there is a massive shift on a daily cycle called the Deal Vertical Migration. And so this is the biggest mass migration on the planet, and it happens every day in our oceans. So we have this shift where our microbial and larger community is shifting from the surface to depth. So we are able to capture that transition on a daily cycle. And so that would be somewhat important for my work to understand when these phytoplankton are producing these compounds that can reach the surface and further the atmosphere, but also important to understand for Alexis's work. So you want to talk on that?
Yes, I do imagine that we would see some differences in the, samples that we collect. While I have not gotten any results back yet, I do imagine that there would be a difference just because of what Dorothy touched on.
Wonderful. Well, it's been so great talking to both of you. I've really enjoyed this, and good luck on the rest of your cruise.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dean Zoran, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us and have a chat with some of our graduate students. We really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. And another thank you to Alexis and Dorothy for giving us an inside look at what kind of science is happening at sea on their research cruise. I would like to take this time to welcome back Drs. Wiederwohl and Hu. So thank you both for taking time out of your busy cruise schedule to join us and share your science with our viewers. The students told us about their research, and they mentioned collecting water samples. How do you collect those water samples? Are you just simply throwing a bucket over the side of the boat, or how do you collect those samples when you're at sea?
I wish it were that simple. That would be amazing, actually. Yeah, so the workhorse of oceanography is something called a CTD, and it's an instrument that can give us continuous measurement in the water column of the temperature, how salty it is, what the oxygen content is. Yes, that's a great picture of it right there. Thank you, Grant. And we actually send this all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. And then those gray bottles that you see on there are, we call those Niskin bottles. And those are bottles that we can actually electronically close at an exact depth. So we know exactly where we're getting water samples. So some of our data just comes in, electronically, and we have it right there. But then other measurements, we don't have sensors for those sorts of things. So we need an actual volume of water to be able to measure the microbial communities that are present in the water column. And so we send this piece of equipment all the way down to the bottom and then all the way back up. And then we're able to actually collect water samples from those Niskin bottles. And that's actually why we were late coming on this live stream, is because we had this in the water and didn't really feel comfortable doing that and this at the same time. Safety is always priority. So that's how it works at sea. You just never know when you're going to have what in the water when. Yeah, so all of the students are actually collecting water samples from this. We have some other operations going on as well. We're taking sediment cores to be able to look at the sediment layer near the Mississippi River Delta. We're also doing plankton net tows, which I apologize, I don't think we provided a photo of one of those. But this is a net that we can kind of tow through the water column at the surface to try to figure out what microbial communities or what phytoplankton and zooplankton are actually present in the water column. And this is also in addition to Dorothy's aerosol sampling that she's doing as well. So we have a lot going on to be able to collect data other than just a bucket. Although we do have buckets.
Yeah, there's lots of buckets.
We do have buckets everywhere.
So you said you send that CTD down to the bottom,
Mhm.
all the way to the bottom, thousands of meters deep?
Yes, all the
Wow.
way down without touching. That's the goal. It actually has this an altimeter on it, so it can tell us how far off the bottom we are when we get close to the bottom. And so
Okay.
we like to get close, but not touching. That can make things a little bit more dangerous if we start touching the bottom. But we like to try to go almost as all the way down as we can.
Oh, okay. So Dean Zoran mentioned something about day-night cycles, and then the students chimed in that they are collecting samples at night and not just in the daytime. So how do you collect samples at night when you're on a ship out in the ocean?
Stay up pretty late.
Stay up all the time.
Stay up all the time.
Yeah, we do 24-hour operations out here. So actually, poor Sarah has been up since midnight. She doesn't look like it. So she's actually on watch right now. So if you can hear a door slamming, her whole team is actually collecting samples right now. Hopefully fine.
But
without
that's the great thing about being on these shifts and being at sea for even a few days as we've been. Like the team's totally operating fine. Everyone's become a team after just kind of having a couple of days of settling into the shifts and getting used to that midnight to noon shift that we're on. So they're sampling the CTD right now, and I expect that's going to work fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so in our 24 operations, we normally work 12-hour shifts. We don't take weekends off when we're out here. Ship time it's a privilege to be able to have time and access to a ship to be able to go out in the open ocean, and so we make the most that we can of it. And so we do run 24-hour operations. We basically divide our team in half, and Sarah is in charge of the team that's working from midnight to noon, and then I will come on shift here in an hour and 15 minutes and take over for the noon to midnight shift with my team of students. So we keep round the clock operations going to I guess maybe answer Mark's not answer Mark's question, but give him some insight. When you work the midnight to noon shift, it does kind of throw you off for a little while. You're not really sure what's up or down. Your breakfast is your dinner and your lunch is your supper or whatever. And so it kind of throws you off for a little bit, but then you get kind of used to it after a while. Coffee helps.
Coffee helps. It also helps to be able to catch the sunrise. We've been making sure we all catch the sunrise.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you two and all of the students, in fact, are having a great time while you're out there.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us and our viewers today?
I think just the importance of being able to do what we do out here. We can't send autonomous vehicles out here to replicate what we're doing, and so we try really hard in our department to make sure our students have access to be able to get the samples that they need and collect the data that they need, and just kind of advance the field of oceanography forward. It's a really important part of our Earth system, right? It's helping to balance heat on the planet. It's helping to provide oxygen that we breathe on land. And so it's such a privilege to be out here and kind of train the next generation of ocean scientists. I mean, I feel like that's part of our job as professors of oceanography, is passing our knowledge down and making sure that, we keep this field going. And you heard from our 2 students. We have a whole 10 other students that you didn't hear from. I feel like the future is very bright. Not to toot our own horn, but I think we're doing a good job.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a fantastic way, in addition to being where the students we're training also come from different disciplines, or they're studying to kind of be experts in their field in different disciplines. So we have each one represented: geology, physics, chemistry, biology, all represented on this cruise. And so everyone gets to learn about each type of those samples and how they're taken at sea. And it's a great way to learn from each other as well.
We're pulling some students out of their comfort zone. We have the geologist doing some chemistry on board. I think it's a true testament to how interdisciplinary the field of oceanography really is. I'm a physical oceanographer by training, but I have a really good understanding of the chemistry and the biology that's going on in the ecosystem. In fact, I have to know those sorts of things to be able to better understand my science. And so we like to pull them out of their comfort zone to learn, I guess, learn more of the nuts and bolts of how we collect some of this data.
Okay. So from your pictures and the things you've told us today, you two have clearly been on a variety and perhaps a large number of different research cruises. So I have to ask, what is your favorite part of a cruise?
This is summer camp at sea. It is. We are running 24-hour ops. We don't know what day it is exactly. Yes.
The only day that we know what it is Tuesday, because we do tacos on Tuesday.
Yes, that is important.
that is our calibration point, is Taco Tuesday.
So there's lots of fun shenanigans that but we're up all night sampling together, and that's like part of being a fun teamwork, part of a fun team, and yeah, that's what it makes. It does feel like summer camp out here.
Yeah, I will say I enjoy being in warm weather more frequently instead of Antarctic cold weather. It's nice not to be freezing all the time, although it's really hot in this room we're in right now. So we're kind of excited to go outside here after we're done with this live stream. So.
All right. Well, is there anything else you would like to tell us?
No, I mean, I think just it's really important that we're able to keep doing what we're doing, and we're super excited to be out here, and we hope the next 4 days goes as smoothly as the first 2 have, and tomorrow is Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, tomorrow's Taco Tuesday. Tell everybody. And this is one of the cruises that we run every year through A&M, and so we're excited to be part of this year. And also, Darren, thank you for hosting.
Yeah.
You are very welcome. So once again, thank you to Dr. Chrissy Wiederwohl and Dr. Sarah Hu for joining us on this live stream today. I would also like to thank our viewers for tuning in to this live stream and learning about some of the different kinds of science going on right now out on the ocean there. We hope to do this again in the future. If you have any questions or would like further information, please feel free to reach out to us on social media at TAMU Oceanography on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and at TAMU_ocean on X. So, until next time, fair winds and following seas.